What up, gunfighters? Mobile episode on my way back from the range. Thought I'd give you a range report, kind of a throwback to days of yore when I would do this in the car. I'll try and clean up the audio, but forgive the suboptimal audio quality. This is Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, gunfighting, use of force, tactics, ammo, all manner of things. The right way with Almighty God at the center. Judeo-Christian values and real-world first-hand experience. I'm your host, Michael Milito. If you guys keep up with the show, you'll know that recently went to Alaska, parked the vehicle because we weren't taking it. It cost too much money to take it. We parked it in a guarded, locked facility, and it got broken into. A lot of things went missing. Several guns, ammo. Anyway, sad times, but God provides. Building back up the arsenal, digging into some other funds, building back up some arsenals to get some other guns. And I got two that I went and sighted in today and got some rifle data on. I only sighted in one. The other one I just got data on as to what kind of ammunition that it liked and if it was a shooter or not. And I guess I just wanted to give you guys some impressions. It made me think about some other things. Let me talk about the first one that I got. Actually, the second one that I purchased, but the other one I bought online. Took a while to come in and to get. But the first one, a SIG Tread. I'll be honest, I didn't even know this gun existed. And I just did an episode where I recommended like really good go-to top 5 ARs, and this one wasn't on there. But I was kicking around the local gun store, and they had a really good deal on this used SIG Tread. It said 1,000 rounds through it. Came with a bunch of extras, and it was just a good deal. And I hemmed and hawed on it instead of sniffed and scurried. And I hemmed and hawed. Some of you guys will get that reference. And I looked at it a couple of times, and I went in one time, and I looked, and I noticed that the screws in the side were not the normal just pins that go on a lower. They were like hex, Torx, or Allen wrench screws, I forget which. But that told me that something was going on with the lower, and I looked at a SIG Tread that was brand new, and I realized it didn't have a factory trigger. So I asked if I could see the trigger, and sure enough, it was a single stage flat trigger. Asked if I could fire it, and I did, and it was superb. It was just fantastic. I'm a sucker for a good single stage flat trigger. I thought about it one more night, and the next day I thought, if it's in there, I'm going to go get it. And it was in there, and I got it. It was filthy, so I took it home and cleaned it for quite a while, and cleaned out the bore, put in some good solvent and some good lube, and just did a good bore treatment on it, and reassembled it after I cleaned it. And then it came with a really nice enclosed hollow sun. I forget what model, but it kind of was set up not the way that I would set it up. I got it thinking that at that price for those features, even if I rip it apart and keep some of the parts, it will pay for itself. And I was blessed to be in the ability to look at a new rifle, a new kind of fighting rifle. And this Tread, I almost didn't get it because I picked it up and it's like, it's heavy. I mean, it's 7 pounds. To give you an idea, my Scar Heavy weighs 7.7 pounds, and it's a 308. This is a 223, and it weighs 7 pounds. It's really front heavy. It's got a really thick, robust rail on it. Free-floated rail. You can look up the SIG Tread. It's got a stainless steel barrel, which, to be honest, I prefer nitride. But again, I thought even with the parts, I'll get it. And if I end up like completely redoing a bunch of it, it'll still be worth it. But I thought before I go crazy, let me take it out to the range. So I took off the hollow sun, not because there's anything wrong with the hollow sun, but because I wanted a magnified optic to see how good it shot. Because if it's a shooter, I don't want to go messing with it. And it's a shooter. I'm blessed to have this rifle. The very first group I shot out of it, and I shoot at 50 yards, I zero my guns at 50 yards. I mounted an old, not that old, but the old model of the Simmons 22 mag scope. It's just a fixed 4X, but it's what I had to throw on there. I threw that on there with some Weaver mounts, nothing crazy. I just threw it on there. And the very first group I shot out of it was 55 grain ammunition. I've recommended to you guys a couple of times. It's one of my go-to fighting AR rounds. It's the 55 grain Hornady Frontier hollow point match. And it shot one ragged hole. I'm talking, this was from a cold bore. Had just been cleaned. I ran a bore snake through it to make sure there was no lube or anything left in there. Cold bore, first group, one ragged hole. Oh, and we're talking, I shot from I had a rubber rest, but I was shooting from one of those fold open lawn chairs over a metal gate, like a metal fence gate. It's not exactly a good bench rest shooting. It shot one ragged hole. And that's great because that's my go-to ammo. I figured I'd try it with that. And then I tried it with a couple of different kinds of ammo. I tried it with a couple of 75 grains, a 75 grain match load, and Hornady black ammo, 75 grain, and just the Winchester 55 grain white box. And all of them shot good. If that was the best that it shot, if the worst group that it shot was the best group that it shot, I would have been happy with it. I'd been like, yeah, it's a decent rifle. I can recommend it. But the best group, one ragged hole. I mean, and we're talking a fixed 4, not talking some big magnification scope or anything. It's a shooter. So a sample size of 1, but it's fantastic. If I do anything else to make it a lighter, handier rifle, what I might do is just get a completely new upper and switch them in and out. But if that gun shoots like that, I'm probably not messing with that upper. So just a range report on that fantastic rifle. It's a little bit heavy. It would be a fine recce rifle. That's not really what I was looking for. I was looking more for a light, handy truck gun. At 7 pounds, it's a little bit heavy, but it's such a good shooter. I just had to mention that. Also on the 75 grain, I think a lot of people think the 75 grain and 77 grain is a more accurate ammo. And I think that's for 2 reasons. One, because of the growth in long range shooting. And for long range, the higher BC bullets can definitely be better at distance because they buck the wind better. They'll generally retain a little bit more of that energy downrange. They fly through the air more smoothly, which is kind of how you would define ballistics coefficient, BC. But at close range, at inside 300-400 yards, I don't think they're any more accurate. In fact, the 55 grain stuff for me shot quite a bit better, and that's not the only rifle that I have that likes the 55 grain stuff. Also, another reason is the Mark II 62, which is a really good match accurate load. It's loaded to really good high tolerances. Black Hills loads really good ammunition. That's who makes the Mark II 62. They use match bullets. And yeah, if you're comparing that to, 62 grain green tip, which is pretty horrible as far as accuracy goes, then yeah, you will think the 70-something grains are more accurate. But if you're talking about, again, inside 400 yards, I tend to lean towards a 55 grain, and that's just what generally I will go to. If this gun had liked 62 grain and shot a ragged hole with heavier grain bullets, I would have been like, oh, maybe I should run this with those heavier bullets. But again, the 55 grain bullets, don't think that just carte blanche, the heavier grain bullets are better, because they didn't shoot better in my gun. And in general, I don't like them as much as the 55 grainers for a myriad of reasons. Another one is the affordability of practice. But I think the 70-something grains have this kind of mystique about them in the AR world. And I think that's for those 2 main reasons that I aforementioned. So just keep that in mind. A good thing to think about since I was testing it anyway. It has a CMMG, I do believe. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but just looking at it, it looks to me like the single stage flat CMMG trigger. and it's superb. It's a fantastic, crisp trigger. So if that's in fact what that is, a really good trigger, and they're not overly expensive. I have a LPVO at home, which is what I'm thinking I might mount on that. A good Leupold 1.5 to 4 is a good go-to on an LPVO for a good kind of do-it-all AR. And if I'm mounting the LPVO, I'll have to find a way to mount some good backup iron sights just in case. But anyway, that's the update on that gun. It's just a really, really good shooter. So I didn't mention it in my go-to recommendations for like ARs. And I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't such a good deal on a used rifle. But what a fantastic shooting rifle. Very happy with it. And I didn't put that many rounds through it. I wasn't really doing like range testing. I was mostly seeing what kind of ammo that it likes to see what I was, and to see if I actually wanted to keep it together or cannibalize it and use different parts. That said, she's probably going to stay the way she is for a while, God willing, but zero malfunctions, totally reliable. And that will bring us to, I think, the second rifle, the tale of the second rifle. I have wanted for a long time to get some first-hand experience with a scout rifle. And when I look at scout rifles, to me, there's really one that stands out, and that's the Ruger Gunsight Scout Rifle. If you've listened for any length of time, you'll know when it comes to hunting and big game hunting and guiding, I like controlled round feed. To my knowledge, the only scout rifle that is controlled round feed is the Ruger. Also, it comes in stainless. I'm a big fan. Those two reasons alone. Controlled round feed, built on that old Winchester Pre-64 Model 70 action, which I like. Stainless steel. And I got the one that is kind of hard to find, but they have one that's just a walnut stock. Now, the laminate stock is probably the most common, but it's quite a bit heavier. The polymer stock is a little bit lighter than the plain wood stock, and I say walnut. I don't know if it's walnut or some other wood. It's probably actually not walnut now that I think about that. But just a plain wood stock. The polymer stock is lighter, but if I'm getting a scout rifle, I want it to, have a little bit of historicity to it. I like the wood stock. So that is the one that I got. I was actually looking for one of those for a long time, and I had sold a 1911 a while ago, and I still had money left over from that, and I figured, instead of getting another 1911, why not get something that I've never tried before, especially for the podcast, and see if I like it. So I got this Ruger Scout Rifle. Got it a couple of days ago. I did a quick trigger job on it on my own. The trigger that it came with wasn't bad. It was a good, what I would call factory trigger, but it wasn't a great rifle trigger. But after doing a quick trigger job with just costing me zero money, superb, just delicious trigger. On that rifle, I'm not going to tell you what I did on that because I don't want to be held liable if you do it, but I slammed it on the ground a bunch, beat the crap out of it to make sure the sear wasn't going to slip, make sure it was a good, safe trigger, and it's a good trigger, and it's really, really clean and crisp and not crazy light. The first trigger job I did on it was a little bit too light, so I went back and did it again to make it a little bit heavier. I don't like crazy light triggers in working rifles, which is what this one is hopefully going to be. This one, a little bit different. I mounted a scope on it just to see what kind of ammo it likes. That was kind of one of the main points of going to the range. And I shot this with a couple of different kinds of ammo, and I was appalled at how horrible this gun was shooting. It was shooting like several MOA. And I even tried like Hornady 175 grain match ammo, and it was atrocious. I was just like, oh no, what have I done? And so it came with the stock on it, obviously, and I looked and it was kind of lopsided, the stock on the rifle. I take the stock off and I put it back on and I torque it to the factory torque specs, which is high. The front action screw on those is angled, and it needs to be torqued fairly high, so they say. I torqued it back to the like recommended torque, or at least pretty close. I marked it, and it was shooting horrible. And I tried the old paper trick where you run the piece of paper down the fore end, and I noticed that it was touching on one side. So I thought, well, factory specs, throw caution to the wind. I loosened that front action screw to the point where I could slip that paper in and out. And also it made I don't know what was going on here. Maybe the stock wasn't drilled true or something like that, or just something was going on. But when I loosened it a little bit, it got more centered in the stock. And I ran a piece of that right in the rain paper, which is pretty thick, and it slid down towards the action. So I thought, okay, God willing, this is gonna work. And I shot it, and it shot great. Not great like the SIG, but we're comparing apples and oranges here. But it shot 2 groups back to back, well under an inch and this after I did the action work on it and did a little bit of, we're talking like at the range with the tools that I had action work, not even like taking a Dremel to it or anything yet, if I in fact do that. But just that little bit of action work took it from what I would call several MOA to well under an inch with kind of my go-to 308 ammo, Federal High Shock 150 grain. It's a good, affordable, what I would call Walmart load, but also really good terminal performance for like deer size game, and a good defensive load. And it shot 2 groups back to back, well under an inch. And this is me laying prone in the back of a pickup truck with the dog in the truck moving around. Like, you can see the reticle moving. So it's not like it's, again, a good solid bench rest. But shot 2 groups back to back, 3-round groups, well under an inch. We're talking at 50 yards, but again, not ideal conditions. So very happy with that. Just that little bit of a tweak on that action screw, going away from those factory specs, turned it from just an atrocious, horrible, not accurate gun to a really what I would expect and very happy with as far as accuracy. You're talking a controlled round feed. It's not even bedded yet. If I in fact decide I want to bed it, it's a working rifle, not a target rifle. We'll see if I bed it or not. But to well under an inch, now we're talking 50, not 100 yards. But we're also talking sub-ideal conditions. But after that, I took the scope off and I ran it with iron sights, which is one of the big reasons I wanted the Scout rifle. I really love iron sights. I started competition shooting at a very early age, well before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. In fact, I had already gotten a gold medal, at least one. I've won more shooting competitions than I can remember by the talents God's blessed me to have. And I started out precision, like rifle iron sight shooting, like 3, actually back then it was 4 position. And I really love running a good rifle with a good sling, like sling tension, iron sights, peep sights. One of the reasons I wanted the rifle. So after that, I just kind of had fun shooting it with the iron sights, which was I just love that. It's fantastic. It's hard to find, sadly, nowadays, a good bolt action rifle with iron sights. I think in many ways, let me just wax philosophical here. I think in many ways, we've gone backwards in so many ways. Yeah, a lot of the new guns are super great and super accurate, but there's something to be said for a good, practical rifle. Like a good practical rifle with a good sling, good iron sights. I did some practice in carrying African carry, which if you don't know is muzzle down, weak side, and getting it on target as fast as I can. And then, what I would call, or what I've heard called American carry, which is strong side muzzle up and swinging it around and getting a good sight picture quickly. Just the art and beauty of shooting with iron sights. I just had a really fun time at the range until it started getting pretty cold. And it was already snow on the ground throughout the day. But when the sun starts going down, it starts getting cold. I'm up in northern Idaho. And I just figured, while everything was fresh in the memory and thinking about a few things, I would give you a range report. I don't often just do range reports, but I thought maybe you'd like this, maybe a little bit of a throwback. Forgive the audio quality if it's subpar. Anyway, I am blessed that you guys listen to me ramble on. Maybe not the most coherent episode, but I thought, again, maybe you guys would just like a little bit of a range report. Alexander Hamilton is beside me sleeping. He got a really good run in, maybe 8, maybe 10 miles of running up and down, logging roads. So fun for him too. And a good day. I might even splurge and get some fancy city coffee on my way back through a town. Splurge a little bit and spend whatever it is, $3 on the fancy city coffee. Feeling good, a good range day. Oh, home on the range. Don't forget to use the gifts and talents that God has given you, men. It's a blessing to be able to have the freedom to go out and shoot. And I hope that you guys are enjoying it. Anyway, with that, not my normal greetings or not my normal salutations. Just I want to say thanks for listening and have a blessed day.